Connection. I'm Mira Rubin, here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is revenge, which interesting. Anyway, it should be an interesting topic because somehow we justify revenge in our culture, but um, I just was going through Restream Hell this morning. I don't know how many of you have experienced those verification things where you have to pick the pictures. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. I'm making apologies for being so late to get on this morning because I got caught in Restream Hell, where the verification process is where you have to pick all these images, and it just kept going and going and going. And anyway, it's always when I'm running short on time that these things pop up. It's pretty funny. Anyway, before we get started, let's take a minute or two to just get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our hands together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we're talking about we're talking about revenge. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who was just savoring the idea about of revenge, just to get revenge. And it just we discussed it, it's like, well, what is it? What's going on with you that you want to get revenge? And what would that revenge accomplish? And I think it's interesting to look at what the dynamics, what the underlying dynamics might be. Because, an eye for an eye, we all end up blind kind of idea. What this system of revenge, if we think about war and conflict and it's kind of a zero-sum game. It's not something that leads to anything positive ultimately. There's this deep sense of having been wronged, and that having been wronged justifies our wronging of another. And it's an interesting paradigm. It's an interesting thing to look at, born of our domination and control system. Revenge is a way of trying to reclaim power somehow. Why would we want to seek revenge? Because we felt that we'd been wronged in some way. And maybe we felt powerless, or we felt disrespected. and our sense of self was violated. Maybe we were harmed. Maybe we were actually physically harmed and emotionally harmed. And uh, revenge is a way for us to reclaim some power, or at least that's the way we perceive it. And that we're justified in hitting back. And maybe we are. Um, However, ultimately, where does that get us? And it's an interesting question, because we're in very fraught times, and we're confronting a lot of big issues in the world, and there's a lot of political foment and anger, and somehow in our anger we feel that we're justified to be treating others poorly and without respect. And I'm wondering what it can look like if we call ourselves to a um, higher sense of values, and what might we create that could take us where we want to go, rather than perpetuate systems that are self-destructive at the very least. So I'm not saying turn the other cheek and allow yourself to be abused. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be consequences for actions. But this notion of revenge would drive different consequences. Um, and revenge itself has its own consequences, as does anger. When we harbor anger toward another, who does that anger hurt? It hurts us. And then when we act on it, then that can hurt someone else as well, right? But what what kind of resolution can we seek that is not based on revenge? Because as things stand, revenge breeds revenge, and it's not something. It ends up with everybody being hurt. And if we can take action. So in this situation, there was what was going on was that this person felt very disrespected, having made a contribution to an organization, not a money contribution. Um, they did a project for an organization, and then some other person came in and tried to take it over without full knowledge of what was going on. The details aren't that important, but the person who did the project felt very deeply disrespected. And so they were out for revenge. And there was a meanness around it, that they were feeding this energy within them, like they were excited about the prospect of causing embarrassment or harm to this other person. And I was able to engage with them in conversation and about this, and they kept making it about the other person and the wrong that had been done them, and justifying justifying this revenge or desire for revenge. And I kept trying to bring it back to say, well, what is it, what's going on in you that is stimulating that need for revenge? And while they could say, they could recognize that that person disrespected them, that person disrespected them and needed to be punished. And so if we think about punishment, what's the intention of punishment? Is it to inflict harm, or is it to create a to generate some kind of, is it a corrective measure? Right? What is punishment? And again, when we think about punishment, it goes back to domination and control, right? We're again looking at a system of domination and control and disempowerment. And I don't think we question these things because it's such a deeply entrenched paradigm in our system that we when we think that punishment somehow is, I don't know if we even do think that punishment is a corrective. You know, somebody does something bad and you punish them. Well, what's that for? Is it to inflict harm, or is it to generate a correction? And I think that if we look at the notion of generating a correction, then there is a very different approach. I mean, if we look, and I think it's interesting to question these things, if we look at our system of crime and punishment, like someone kills someone and locking them up for a certain period of time is punishment. And I wonder, are we just trying to mitigate the potential harm by locking this person up? And if so, what happens when they get out? Is that harm mitigated? Because if we look at the penal system, it's not something that breeds correction necessarily, right? And it is a punishing system. So maybe punishment can be corrective in that it is so bad that people want to avoid that. But maybe there's another way that is reflective of the values that we want to nurture. And I think that it challenges us to be exploring different ways of being, like a timeout for a kid that's acting out, for instance. A timeout can be a good thing, to just be able to get a breath, to be able to take a beat, Um, I believe in certain indigenous cultures, there's a circle where the intention is to create healing, to recognize that when a harm is done, the person doing the harm, there's also harm there. There's also healing for the person who's done that harm. And relating to humans as humans, to be relating to one another through our humanity, reconciliation kind of idea, uh, rather than retribution. It's a very different way of thinking and approaching an issue, to be engaging on a human level rather than an authoritative power and control kind of level. And we're conditioned to that kind of culture, the domination and control culture, the othering and threat and uh, vanquishing the threat, the battle kinds of approaches that we have to life and to the things that are challenging in life, like when we're gonna fight climate change, we're gonna fight for our rights. And I'm wondering what happens if instead of fighting we stand. Like there's a different attitude, there's a different energy of it, there's a different commitment, I think, to what we're trying to create in the world. And when we react with anger and a call to vengeance, it's an opportunity to look inside ourselves to say, well, what is it that's motivating that response in me? Why am I wanting to lash out? And maybe this person was disrespectful or did something that I don't like. Well, great. So what kind of action can I take that is in alignment with my higher values? How can I respond in a way that honors what my truest commitments are? And what is it in me that was so injured that I'm lashing out in that way? And how can I heal whatever that is within me? So when it's not like the punishment for crime, for instance, when it's a punishment rather than a containment or a corrective kind of engagement. It's not like the punishment actually ends up healing the wound. I think it's an interesting thing for us to be looking at and to be questioning in our response. It's like, I want to get them back. I want to hurt them the way they hurt me. And and what what does that do besides perpetuate a dynamic that invites more of the same? So I think it's an interesting question. I think it's something for us to look at and to see how pervasive this power and control dynamic is in our culture and in our own lives and our own responses. And to be exploring other ways to interact with each other and our own wounds. So that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel each morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, weekday morning. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And as always, it's such a privilege to have the opportunity to have these morning musings together on what it is to be human and to grow and evolve through this space that we have to do so together. So until next time, so much love to you.